Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
You know, everybody has a bad weekend, and this was one of those. And a good friend of mine called me yesterday and said, you don't need anger management. You need people to stop teeing you off. How true. Good morning, Zeb at the Ranch. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Thank you very much, and that's Kate Smith, and God bless America this morning on Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call Kelly and the crew, locally owned and operated, and serving you, 734-6969. I want to say this up front to everybody this morning. Yours truly has a little case of the flu bug, and there may be instances where all of a sudden I'm not here. That's all I can say. And that's when you'll hear the wonderful female throaty tones of the wonderful Gina Jameson. Good morning.
The throaty tones?
Yeah, throaty tones. Oh, man.
Not feeling so well this morning.
No, I almost called and said, bag it. But, you know, I can't do that. My advertisers and sponsors and everything, it's hard to not be here.
Not only that, but we've got a lot of things to cover today. Of course, legislative session starts today.
Yeah, Fred Wood's going to be on later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to be talking to Frosty, so it's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
So if you have to bail, just let me know.
I'm on the railing, but I haven't jumped.
Okay, well, don't jump.
Okay.
Not yet, but I got you.
Do we have a pledger?
We have Al on for the pledge and Mr. Michael Rogers on for the weather.
Very good. Al, go ahead, please.
And I won't push you over the edge and take 2 aspirins and see me in the morning.
Listen, I'll take the 2 aspirin, but the last thing I want to do is see you in the morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless you, man. Thanks for calling in.
Deborah,
yes, sir.
I seen a deal the other day. I went over to get my insulin from Walmart, and there were some guys out there in the parking lot revving up their snowmobiles. And I almost went over and said, hey, guys, the snow is 30 miles south. But they was bigger than me, so I just shut up.
That's a first. Hey, thanks, Al. God bless you, man. Thanks.
You bet.
All right. Time for the weather, brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, 678-6945. The number to call. Look for their blue door. And they've got new hours Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturdays, 10 to 4. And check out all the new home decor items. And don't forget, they've got all the new Valentine's Day decor. That's just around the corner in a couple of weeks at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Morning. Question for you, Zeb Bell. What's it doing up there right now?
Very, very cloudy and foggy, and I have heard from some various people back in the Pendleton area that we might be having snow coming this way.
Yeah, you will later on tonight. Start out as rain, you have a little bit of snow, and continue throughout much of tonight, going into tomorrow, taper off tomorrow night, and then from, say, early Wednesday all the way through Friday, maybe possibly Saturday. You got sunny weather, but just want to get through today morning, everybody. 30 for the daytime high, 27 for the overnight low. When it's over, set, and done, should have about an inch of snow on the ground. Possible. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Don't forget they've got just all kinds of newly refurbished furniture, too, at Cheney Flooring and Home Design with Kyle and Whitney Cheney, waiting to serve you. Stop in today, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for their blue door. Caller, I'll be right there. Please stand by. I'm in kind of one of those melancholy moods this morning. I don't feel too good with the old flu bug, but we'll get right with the program. Stand by. Daryl's Cleaners, 1228 Albion Avenue in Burley, always with the program. The very best of cleaning all your clothes, all your drapes, all your tablecloths, getting the stains out. Be sure that you take your clothing, you take everything in there that needs to be cleaned by the very best. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They're waiting to serve you, as are the good folks over at SafeLink Internet. You better believe it, Idaho's #1 choice for wireless high-speed internet. Oh my, SafeLink Internet, the best. Here's their number, 677-8000. And don't forget to call them now and mention my name. SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. The very, very best. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
How are you this morning, young man?
That's not a good question to ask right now, Dal.
Yes, it is. It's a trying question.
Well, let's just...
get to feeling better?
Yeah.
Go down to the store and buy yourself a bag of onions.
A bag?
Put them in each room in your house, and it works.
Put onions...
You don't do nothing but just stick them in the window or someplace.
A bag of onions and you put them all over your house?
You put one in each room.
I've never heard of that.
I've also heard that what you do is you slice up an onion and you put an onion slice in each sock before you go to bed, and so that helps draw the toxins out of your body.
Now, I'm not going to argue with that because, you know, far be it from me, you've been around longer than I have and know about all these old cures. I'll tell you what, look out, store. Here comes Zeb for some onions. I'll try anything.
Well, just put one. You don't have to peel them or cut them or nothing.
Uh-huh.
Just put one in each room. That includes the bathroom.
Let's not talk about that room. Thank you.
My wife and I, neither one has had the flu for over 5 years.
Oh, my. Well, God bless you. I'll try it. Believe me, I'm going to get some onions right after the program. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, this little flu bug, oh man, it hit me about Friday afternoon, and I didn't go too far away from the house at all weekend. Stayed right here. I hope Deanna doesn't get it. Don't forget, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We got a lot of things to talk about here in just a minute, so stay tuned. Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Don't forget Sean, Mandy, the whole crew over there. And they've got all your fishing supplies. I'm not kidding you. Ice fishing, summer fishing, all that kind of fishing supplies. And if you go in and say, hey, I heard Zeb talking about this on the radio, you'll receive a 10% off card to use for the rest of the year. I mean, save 10% for the rest of the year. Just mention my name. Get a card. Hey, stop into Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. They love serving you. Really nice people. Okay, let's go through a couple of things. First of all, tonight is the big night for the first, quote-unquote, National Collegiate Football Championships, and it's going to be between Ohio State and Oregon. Two exceptionally talented teams, but some on Oregon extremely dumb. There have been some sending home messages to some of the players. One in particular that is an offensive star for Oregon, because here is the greatest, biggest game of your life. Here is a game that could propel you with all kinds of PR into the NFL and make buku millions of dollars. And this one very stupid young man decided that he would not pass a urine test because he was, quote, taking drugs. How in the world can you mess up not only the game for your team, but also your life for the future by being so doggone dumb? And that's what it is, dumb. And I just can't. I want all the young people that are listening out there, don't do or get involved in stupid things that are going to absolutely destroy your future and your opportunities with the talents that God has given you. There is a classic case of where this guy's not going to suit up. He's not going to get a chance to play. He's not going to get a chance to participate. He's not going to get a chance to be a very valued cog in the wheel. He's a nothing. He's a nothing because of his stupidity. And that's what it is. And quite frankly, his thinking that he's better than anybody else and that he can defy the rules. And I stand up for the coach of Oregon and the coaching staff for throwing him out. Good for them. Good for them. Also, in football notes, whatever, follow that word. It's the flu. Anyway, in football notes, my Green Bay Packers, which Gina probably has a comment on, are going to be playing Seattle next week for the NFC Championship. And over in the AFC, it's going to be the Indianapolis Colts against the Patriots. Do you have anything you want to say, dear sage of football?
All I have to say is it is going to be a game, and I'm so excited I'm really excited for this matchup. Honestly, a lot of people thought that it was going to be the Cowboys versus Seattle, so I'm glad that these are my two teams.
Yeah, but
these are my two teams right here, the Packers and Seattle, and so this is going to be a tough game for me to watch. Of course, I'm going to go with Seattle on this one.
Well,
and watch out for Cam Chancellor and Marshawn Lynch.
Let me just give a little caveat, though, and this is not an excuse, but you know it's the truth. Green Bay absolutely playing under the hindrance of a severe injury to Rodgers.
Yes.
And he, yesterday, boy, I don't know how he gutted it out. He had the limp downfield. He had to pack that leg. It wasn't functioning properly at all, and he did a heck of a job.
Yep.
And that one pass to Quarles in the end zone, 13-yard pass, I, in no way, shape, or form, would have wanted to put my hands up to catch that pass. That thing looked like a Nike missile.
You know, it was a phenomenal game, and I really give it to Rodgers for gutting it out, like you said, and just, making it to the end of the game. I really do hope that he's going to be in good health for this matchup, because this is going to be a matchup to watch.
Well, here's the deal, and you're going to say, what did he just say? Quite frankly, my heart says go Green Bay and beat Seattle, but my head is saying, with the number one defense and an offense that is absolutely outstanding when Smith or Wilson decides to pull the trigger, wow, that's going to be an uphill battle for Green Bay.
It is going to be an uphill battle. But, Green Bay has been known to pull out some phenomenal things. Now, who is Green Bay's backup quarterback?
Matt Flynn.
He has performed in the past, and he's pulled out some, he can come out in the clutch, and so he might surprise you.
He's been taking all the reps because of Rodgers being out and not able to practice, which is a good thing for Matt Flynn.
It is.
And all the practice reps and everything. So, and quite frankly, a couple of years ago, before he was traded away from Green Bay, he came in and saved Green Bay's bacon on quite a few occasions. And he's a very good quarterback. He said he wants to retire at Green Bay as a Packer. And if Rodgers does go down, I can't think of anybody that is more suitable to come in and try to lead the pack attack than it would be Matt Flynn.
I think Matt Flynn might surprise you if he's going to be suited up for the game, which I'm assuming that he probably will be.
Oh, yeah.
He might surprise you, but, going up against the Seattle defense, that's going to be hard to beat. And which, by the way, did you see the play going into halftime?
Of the pass to... Are you talking about the Green Bay
No,
game?
I'm talking about the Seattle game against North Carolina.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There was quite a few great plays and great calls, but I thought you were talking about the pass that was taken away from the Dallas Cowboys.
No, I was talking about how Cam Chancellor jumped over the offensive line.
Twice!
Twice. To try and block that kick. And we're thinking, oh, my gosh, first time around was phenomenal. He didn't block the pass or block the kick. And so we're like, well, is he going to try it again? Sure enough, he tried it again.
You know, and here's the tackle. That's sitting there in his three-point stance, and Chancellor's already jumped over him once. Now, maybe, just maybe, somebody would say to him, hey, watch Chancellor, number 31. He's going to try to jump you again. It didn't make any difference. He stayed right there in that three-point stance.
He did. He stayed right there. And you know what? What I found phenomenal is that Chancellor, his feet didn't even touch the O-line. He went up and over. And so we're like, is he going to try to third? Is he going to try to third? And he didn't try it the third time around, but not once, but twice. He jumped that O-line to try and block that field goal kick, which ended up, they did make some points on the board for that one.
Seattle,
that was just a phenomenal play.
Seattle has some outstanding athletes, and I am going to try to get some of those folks on our program, some of the Packers and some of the Seahawks, hopefully towards the end of this week. I get to feeling better. I'll make some calls. And then I missed a golden opportunity last week on this show. I'll tell you what, let me do a commercial quick, and I'll tell you what it was. Okay? Stand by.
Okay.
Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. Open 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. Snow's falling here right now, and that means it's cold, chilly outside. Well, have you changed the air filter in your furnace? Uh-oh, you ask your furnace to keep performing and performing and performing, but you're not going and treating that furnace with nice, kindly attention and care. Make sure you buy either one or a package of quality air filters at Ramsey Heating and Electric. They've got everything over there, and they're waiting to serve you. 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm weekends, warm winters, and cool summers, and warm weekends, too, at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Hey, by the way, I want to tell you, everybody, you know what a fan I am of Denny's Restaurant, not only at 611 Overland in Burley, but also the new one at 291 Pole Line in Twin Falls. Well, the other day I had to go in for some tests at the hospital, and after it was all over, you can't eat after midnight and all this kind of stuff. Well, I set the car sights on Denny's at 291 Pole Line, and we stopped in. Wow, the service there, just like in Burley, absolutely exceptional. The food was outstanding. You're going to love Denny's Restaurant, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and our next lunch bunch coming up next week on the 22nd, so don't miss that. Denny's Restaurant, absolutely delicious. Okay, Gina, back over to you. What were we talking about just a minute? My mind is not well.
Last week you missed out on an opportunity to get an interview, I'm assuming from somebody from Seattle or maybe Green Bay.
No, it was Green Bay. And I really felt bad because we couldn't make connections. And you know this name, the great all-pro guard for the Green Bay Packers, number 64, Jerry Kramer.
Yes, and the University of Idaho, as a matter of fact.
We had him on our program about 3 or 4 times in the past, and I did my best diligently to get him to come on the air. Hold on just a second, please. To get him on the air and talk about the Ice Bowl, and it just didn't fit his schedule, and I felt really bad about that. So I just wanted to let you know that.
That would have been a great interview because the Ice Bowl was talked about, in depth as for the Green Bay and Dallas game. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart there.
Oh, I have them all the time.
It's been a morning already.
But see, what was interesting, my Aunt Miriam, I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet my Aunt Miriam.
I talked to her on the phone, but
she was at the first Ice Bowl in 1967.
Can I ask you why they call it the Ice Bowl?
Because at game time on the field, it was 13 below zero with a wind chill factor, the wind blowing at 35 miles an hour, put it down to below 48 below zero.
Holy holy cow, and those players still got out there and
Yep,
played. And,
yep.
and mind you, we're talking about they didn't have quite the padding and the warmth that they do nowadays.
No.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it was so cold. I'll give you a quick story about how this happened, and I wrote about it in my Cow Pies and Coffee Cups blog this last week.
Okay.
We were all watching the game at home, my parents' home back in Wisconsin, okay? And halftime ended up, and then they started the second half, and all of a sudden, pop. There were two loud pops, and the TV set goes off, as did all the power. A power line, a major power source for all of southern Wisconsin, went out and blew up. And I never saw the end of that Green Bay game.
You were devastated.
More than that. There's a word, but I don't use it on my program.
You were also frigid, I'm sure.
But it came on well after the game was over, and we never had a chance to see it live. And my Aunt Miriam, however, was sitting in the stands at the old Lambeau Field watching in person. And I talked to her yesterday, and she said never in her life before or after has she ever been that cold. She said, going into like the fourth quarter, she didn't think she was going to make it, and she honestly felt like she better leave for the car immediately.
Right. So that's how the name the Ice Bowl got started.
Yep.
I was always kind of curious as to why they call it the Ice Bowl, because it didn't seem like it was all that cold this time around. But I knew that had something, with the game in the past.
Well, it was so cold that a lot of the players went into halftime, and Bob Skoronski, Jerry Kramer, and many others, and including most of the Dallas Cowboys, and they wrapped their feet with saran wrap and then put on extra large shoes so they could do something to keep their feet from getting frostbite.
Right, that would make sense.
Yeah.
And so luckily, I'm sure that they all had extra large shoes just standing by.
And one of the worst things that happened that day was to the referee.
What happened?
This is no joke. He put the whistle in his mouth.
Oh no!
I'm serious about this. And it froze to his lip, and he jerked it out of his mouth, and he lost a major portion of his lip.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He should have just left it in there.
That's a true story. Very true story.
Oh, it's kind of like don't stick your tongue on the flagpole.
Like the story about those little kids, the Christmas story. Yeah, same thing. He put, and then back in those days, they still used the, not aluminum, but metal whistles.
The steel ones.
Yeah, and it froze to his lip, and he jerked it out of his mouth and lost half his lip and bled to death.
Wow. Oh, gosh, what a way to start some pain on Monday morning. Holy cow.
I got to pay some bills.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Barry Equipment and Rental, Eli, Nick, and the whole crew, they have the equipment for you and any job to get the job done right. That's right, 0% financing on the Doosan loaders right now. Great lease options. Those great big Doosan loaders, wow, are they something else? They get the job done. You contact Nick and Eli to get your Doosan loader today. Don't forget, retail equipment sales, equipment rentals, parts and service, all of this at 3 locations. Addison Avenue West, Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Really nice people. Time for the Pacific Steel Capital Press Ag Minute. And believe me, Pacific Steel and Recycling at 320 West Main in Burley, always offering superior custom service and even junk car removal, and they've got scrap iron bins. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but Pacific Steel and Recycling also carries trailer parts. You better believe it, and they will meet or beat competitor pricing. Adam, Josh, the whole crew, Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley, 678-2321. Here now, the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
U.S. exports to Cuba hit one of their lowest points in a decade last year, a demonstration of the long-standing barriers to trade that will hamper President Barack Obama's recent move to expand ties. American farmers say the main barrier to sales to Cuba is a U.S. government ban on providing credit to the island. That wouldn't change under reforms Obama proposed last month. Obama's proposals do include a slight relaxation of U.S. rules on Cuban payment to American farmers, allowing Cuba to pay for goods once they are delivered rather than before they are ordered. But U.S. law still prohibits any form of credit to Cuba's state-run import agencies. Cuba's other trading partners often grant those terms. This is Brandon Tenner.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and capitalpress.com.
Brought to you by Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley, and these are really good folks serving you. 678-2321. Thank you very much. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Let's get off the football kick this morning. Okay, we got to get really serious here. So 3.7 million people. 3.7 million people. And all the European and almost virtually all the world leaders gathered in Paris, France for a solidarity march, a huge parade of solidarity, basically to show their strength and their will against ISIS and Al-Qaeda and radical Muslim terrorist violence. Wait a minute. No, I guess all the world leaders weren't there, because there was not one representative, not one, from the United States of America. No Obama, no Biden, no John Kerry, no Holder, nobody. And when asked about the absence in this huge parade of solidarity, Ambassador to France, Jane Hartley, said, we've done so much already. What? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, the snub is so obvious as to what our administration, really supports. It's when 9/11 took place, guess the first ones to be here to support us were the French. And this is really, really sad day. But
no, wait a minute. Whoa. Stop right there. It's a really sad day, but it goes further than that. To me, and you can tell me I'm wrong if you want to, I got big shoulders. What it tells me is that this Obama administration that has been so lax on coming out and calling a spade, or calling the truth when it comes to Muslims and all the hatred and the violence, it just tells me that they have tucked their tail away from the runners of the chair that are rocking back and forth, and they will not say anything against ISIS or Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, they won't call it radical Islam. They just absolutely refuse to do that. And that's because, Valerie Jarrett, she's a Muslim. The CIA director right now is a Muslim. And so you just look at the situation down the line. I mean, our administration is basically supporting, Islam, and just won't come out and say what they're supporting. That's really the bottom line. And then that Times News front page, op-ed page yesterday about, Islam preaches tolerance. I don't know about your blood pressure, but man, it really went up. But before I forget, congratulations on Green Bay. They made it interesting. They kind of waited till the last minute to pull that one out. But anyway, it was interesting. But it's sad what's happening with the leadership in this country, or lack thereof.
Listen, you mentioned something a little bit ago about Valerie Jarrett. And let's just take a look at some of these people. Assistant Secretary for Policy Development for Homeland Security, Arif Akan, is a Muslim. Homeland Security Advisor, Mohammed El-Biari, is a Muslim. And Obama advisor and founder of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, Salam al-Mariyati, Muslim. I mean, the list goes on and on. And how dare, and I know there's going to be some people take offense at this here, but how dare Mike Simpson, our congressman, criticize me and others, and especially Michelle Bachmann, for being concerned about the Muslim influence in the White House, when I'm telling you the truth right about these people I just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just like they, put their head in the sand, and it does. It's we're totally being Islamophobic, and so forth. But let's be realistic. These people, they want to kill us. I'm sorry, but that, there's no tolerance. In the other night on Hannity, they had a couple of those Islam leaders in the U.S. And basically they said, well, we'll be tolerant as long as you accept Sharia law. That was the bottom line.
And did you read?
Wake up.
Did you read the other day in USA Today? And I'm trying to find that story so I can get it on later on this morning, about one of the imams that said, "Hey, listen, don't make cartoons about us. Don't say anything about us, and we'll be much more peaceful. Don't criticize us. You leave us alone, and we won't kill anybody." I mean, for heaven's sakes, Adrian.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy.
I mean, the threats out there, you know, and for this guy from wherever it was, Australia, some PhD candidate,
yeah,
was supposedly going to a Catholic university and saying that, you know, but I've got a friend that has read the Quran. It is not a peace document. It's a war document. It's a war against the whole world unless you convert to Islam.
I know it. I got to run, but thank you very much. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You bet.
God bless. Have a good day. Calls are welcome. I'm so sick and tired of covering up the truth. Let's tell it like it is, for heaven's sakes. And here's just a few musings that I want you to think about. Why are the liberals in our society, including the Times News and their wonderful editorial board, why are they coming out, and now many of them are blaming you and me for the status of Muslims and Al-Qaeda and ISIS, saying, and I heard this at least a half a dozen times this weekend on various news channels, saying that we have so much. We have so much in our lifestyle. We are the cause of the hatred from the Muslims, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, because we have so much and they have so little. Absolutely outstanding. I mean, I just cannot believe when I heard these remarks. You know, those people over there have never tried to be a solid, positive force to mankind. But yet it's easier to point the finger at somebody else and say, oh, well, you've got this, so that makes us less. No, it doesn't. Get up off your two great big fat cheeks and go to work and do something better with your life, and then all of a sudden, voila! Your situation is so much better for you and your family and your country. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Oh, these are wonderful people, led by Nick Greenwell, physical therapist, and the rest of his staff. I mean, you got Jordan and Jeff and Orlando and Emily and Kelly and Tia and Jared. I mean, the list goes on. All these people are so gifted in knowing all the exercises and the sports medicine and helping you get back to being you. That's right, and they got that pool, the only pool for ortho training and rehabilitation. Man, it's great. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Number to call, 678-1191. Come on, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Also want to remind you, when it comes to your vehicles, I am not very sharp when it comes to vehicles at all, but I know people that are. And I know people that have absolutely everything for your automotive replacement products, accessories, and supplies, and they know everything about them. Everything. Scouts Car Quest Centers. Customer satisfaction is the goal. Every detail matters. 3 locations serving you, and these are the nicest people, really good friends with old Jeff and the rest of the crew. Man, they're great folks. 518 Overland in Burley, 323 East 8th and Highway 25 in Rupert, and exit 211 on I-84. My goodness. And if you haven't got your antifreeze and your gas and diesel supplements, we got a lot of winter ahead of us, folks. A lot of winter ahead of us. You stop into Scouts Car Quest Centers. 3 locations serving you where every detail matters. Okay. Give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. This morning, I was listening, and again, I don't know if you're aware of what happened. Fox News and Dish Network got into a great big argument, and Dish dropped Fox or Fox got mad at Dish. Doesn't make any difference. We, the consumer, are suffering. And as of this afternoon, I am going to throw my Dish subscription out the window because I will not be treated like this. I bought a certain package from Dish. And that certain package had all the enumerated programs and networks that I would be supplied. And it's not my fault that they got canceled or got into a fight, and I'm not going to pay for something I'm not getting. However, that being said, it has given me an opportunity to check out some of the other competition, and it's absolutely amazing to me how they can twist and distort the news. But one thing that came out on CNN this morning, and I've got to mention this because it's worthy, and I thought they did a pretty good job. One thing that came out on CNN this morning is that there is now a direct competition, and this is so sick and perverted. If you got little kids or something in the room, kind of shuttle them out of there. But now it's become so much of a competition between ISIS and Al-Qaeda to see who and what group can be more outrageous and kill the most people. I mean, is the value of human life nothing anymore? God gave us so much. And for these people to get up in the morning and their main goal every day is to take maybe little 9 and 10-year-old boys and girls and try to teach them how to kill and how to blow themselves up. I'll give you an example, and it's so horrendous. The terror group Boko Haram over in Nigeria recruited a great litany of 9 and 10-year-old girls to strap on bombs under their dresses and walk into crowded marketplaces and pull the string. And yesterday, like over 20 people were blown to bits because of this little girl being trained to kill. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. And then you have these completely stupid people, and they are, that are going away from religion and going away from Christianity and going away from God. We need more of it, more so than ever before. Argue with me on that point. I'd love it. But these people over in the Middle East want to take us back to the 7th century where everybody is wielding a sword and chopping people's heads off. This is absolutely insane. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Time for the weather, and the weather is brought to you by Red's Trading Post with my dear friend Ryan Horsley and the rest of the crew. They have a large selection of exclusive and limited firearm edition firearms, I should say, pardon me, and great selections of new firearms from Browning and Beretta and Weatherby, Ruger, Benelli, etc., and free cash appraisals for your firearms. All you have to do is stop in and visit with Ryan and the rest of his highly trained staff. And they're at Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Great store, great people serving you. Right now, time for Michael Rogers' weather.
Hey everyone, Michael Rogers or Zeb in the Ranch. Got a yucky day for today, tonight, tomorrow. But from tomorrow night all the way to Friday, make that Saturday, you got some pretty nice looking weather and cooler temperatures. 40s for the daytime highs, upper 20s for the overnight lows. Should be an inch on the ground of possible snow at the end of the night going into tomorrow. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. Brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Wonderful people. Come on, your turn. Don't leave me hanging. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. I would love to hear from you. You know, the happenings over in France with the, and really, I know to some people this might sound callous, but I was cheering when those terrorists were killed because they won't hurt anyone ever again. They won't have the threat of getting out of prison. We won't have to feed them. We won't have to house them in incarceration. They are gone. good. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I totally agree. On a lighter note, though, I know your power went out and you weren't able to see the Packer come back in the Ice Bowl, but I remember watching that game, and I'll never forget the expression on Tom Landry's face when Bart Starr went into the end zone. I mean, I'll just never, it's an image that I'll never forget.
Well, it was one of complete shock because of all the people on a frozen, cold day were at that stage of the game in the last few seconds. You were going to look at anybody to carry the ball. It certainly wasn't diminutive Bart Starr. It could have been Jim Taylor, Paul Hornung, anybody, but not Bart Starr.
That's true. Bart Starr is not what you call a real, by today's quarterbacks, he was small.
Yeah.
I mean, not a big person but anyway, but that look on Tom Landry's face, like, they were ahead the whole game.
Yep.
Still the last 13 seconds, and but it was back then. Of course, there was no instant replays. You had to watch the ball game,
yep.
And there was the cameras and so forth. I would say many of the high school games had almost as good a camera coverage as you do with the pro games back then. There really wasn't very many.
No, but I'll tell you what.
And it was just, but, it was a time in history. But, because of the Packers, I was a big Packer fan. I loved the Packers, and I was glad they won yesterday. They got their work cut out next week for sure. But, I became a Milwaukee Brave fan as well. And one of the president of one of the companies is from Janesville, Wisconsin, that I work with. So
that's 18 miles away from my home. That's 18 miles away from my home, Janesville, Wisconsin. And,
really?
We go down to, as a matter of fact, Deanne, I took my lovely bride down to Janesville when we were back there the last time. It's, also they have a big Chevrolet plant there, GM plant. Adrian, I got to run and catch up. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. God bless.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. I'm glad the Packs won.
I am too.
Well, my big complaint this morning is we've got this blowhard up in the White House throwing up a smoke screen. He wants to give free education to everybody that's walking at 2 feet, and then he wants to, he's worried about the security on the computers when our country is invaded from the borders, and we've got all this people, foreigners, coming into this country who have no other idea but to bring destruction to us. What the heck is going on? This guy has got to go.
Well, that's just it, though, Tony. You know as well as I do, in the remaining 2 years of his administration, he's not going to go anywhere. The Republicans, led still, and unfortunately by John Boehner, they're not going to make a push to get rid of him. I was so disillusioned with our political frame, if you will, when they reelected John Boehner and basically threw away some really good people into the background that might never achieve any status as far as being committee chairman again. We're in the same old. I don't want the McConnells. I don't want John McCain. I was sickened all weekend when they referred to John McCain on at least 7 newscasts this weekend. He's a has-been, and in my opinion, he was and never was. I just absolutely am fed up with the status of the same old.
Well, I had dropped the news here because this newspaper we've got is so left-wing. They're on the side of the people that want to do the most damage to this country.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen to us.
Well, I do. If we keep going on the road that we're at, this great nation is going to see the edge of the cliff, and there's no stopping us. We're going to tumble over to the bottom depths. We have got to wake up, and I'm going to just come out and say it. Who's offended? I couldn't care less. We need to get back to the basics of morality in this country, and quite frankly, get back to God.
When France had this problem here, they went out and they just shot the guys down and killed them and got it over with. Now we got Nadal is in prison. He's still collecting his salary. And then we got this, the puke from the Boston Massacre. He's in the courts. These guys should have been executed on the grounds.
Absolutely. I have no human compassion. The milk of human kindness was never poured in my cup for those people. They should have been taken care of immediately. And guilty is the only way to go, with a punishment of the termination of their life.
Yeah, it's just workplace violence.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tony, God bless you and Mary. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Hey, we have got a new sponsor coming on for Dr. History. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Dr. History about this. It's Minnecasia Sales, and they're located at 1321 East Main in Burley. Number to call, 878-2091. Roger and Zach Hansen. And by the way, with that name, Gina knows these folks because the lovely little Abby is the daughter of Zach, and she calls in so many times and does our Pledge of Allegiance and does a wonderful job. Well, Minnecasia Sales has everything you're looking for: garage doors, windows, truss packages, and they're even a distributor for Tartar Ranch and farm equipment. Oh, yeah, good stuff. You get a hold of them today, 1321 East Main in Burley, Minnecasia Sales, and they are the new sponsor of Dr. History on Tuesdays. Wonderful people. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to tell you something, and this, I know there's going to be people out there that are going, you're just nitpicking. Well, no, I'm not, okay? Go to the newspaper, and the last couple of days, go to either Twin Falls, Most Wanted, or Cassia County, Most Wanted. Okay? We have a couple of individuals. I'll mention their name. I believe they're still looking for them. Mary Elizabeth Erickson. And it goes through. It says female, 5'6", weight 137 pounds, hair brown, eyes green, race white. Okay? Austin Chad Lee, 150 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes, race Caucasian. Oh. Okay, but over in Jerome County, we have the following for Diego Celabayos Gonzalez, age 24, 6'2", 250 pounds, hair black, eyes brown. No race. Why? Why is it okay to mention Caucasians, but our illustrious newspaper and law enforcement agencies won't put down for fear of discrimination about Hispanics or anybody else? I'm going to be asking the Times News about this and other things, but I just wondered if you've caught that in the paper. I've mentioned it before. I thought maybe it had been rectified, but it's not. You know, if you're going to mention one race, mention them all. And by the way, why not? How are you going to know who to look for when you mention only 6'2", 250 pounds, black hair, brown eyes? Now, the name ought to give you a little clue. But if you didn't know the name, you wouldn't know who to look for, would you? This is ridiculous. Oh, no, we can't profile. Oh, no. The heck I can't. Hey, don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. Serving is the key word. And right now, holy smokes, my garage roof is covered. It's really snowing out there. Whoa, coming down pretty good. And if you don't have your traction tires or the tires pinned for studs or your tire chains and you're making a little trip right now, maybe you got to leave this morning, maybe you'd better stop in to your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers right now. And check out not only that, but also the batteries. Maybe their battery's not functioning the way it should. Well, they've got all the batteries, the great big dudes that'll turn that engine over and get you started and keep you getting started, too. You better believe it. All the winter wheels, they've got the best in brake service. It's all there at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Yup, the best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Absolutely. I had to check with Gina for a minute. We made it 1 hour.
1 hour down, 2 to go.
Don't make it sound so long.
That's okay. I've got some extra songs plugged in for you just in case.
You know, broadcasting, and I'm sure it probably happened to you when you were on television and everything, but when you don't feel good and you got to put up a phony facade of, everything is rosy.
And it's so tough to put on, especially when you're on television and you feel like H-E double toothpicks and you have to put on all of the makeup so at least you look good, and then you have to pretend to feel good too. Yeah, it's not good.
There was a sportscaster that worked for ESPN, and this has been, maybe 5-6 years ago, but he was at a basketball game, and he was giving a preview before the game started, and they went to him, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they were doing hey, how's everything over there at the pavilion, and what's going on tonight, and type of thing, and he looked at the camera, and his eyes got real big, and you can imagine what happened next.
Yes. Hopefully he had a bucket nearby, and they caught that on live television. Sure.
But sometimes it's just a human frailty, but you can't cover it up.
No, you can't. I mean, when Mother Nature hits you, man, there's nothing you can do. And I remember working at the television station. However, I never had anything that bad happen, but bronchitis was something that I getting all of the time, especially in the wintertime. And so I would go into these coughing fits. Literally, I would have to leave the desk live while Joe would be doing a news story. I would get up and leave the desk and go into another room, turn my mic off, and do what I had to do, and then come back into the studio.
What's funnier, and I'm almost out of time, but what's funnier, and you've heard this happen, I'm not saying it happened to you, but I have heard major networks forget in the sound room to turn the mics off, and you can hear a hack, and the funniest story ever happened with a person I know very well that was a minister that forgot to turn his microphone off prior to the church service while he was in the men's room.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Can't forget that.
Oh, yeah. No, the finer moments of broadcasting. Always remember, turn off your own mic. Do not rely on master control. I got to run. We'll see you in 6. You got it. I will be back. Let the music play. Surprise, surprise. Here I am, back again, hour number 2, and as I said, the old flu bug kind of hit our house, and yours truly kind of down in the dumps, but we're going to make it through this program, and thank you for all your kind well wishes. I appreciate that. Welcome back, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Of course, many of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services. Here's a couple of good words about them.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. How true. Get on the route service. You can just about set your clocks to when they'll be there to pick up your garbage. Absolutely so efficient and dependable. Locally owned and operated, taking care of you. And check out, too, the dumpsters in various sizes. Clean out that basement. I think I'll clean out this office. I know that's a shock to a lot of people. Ring on the dumpster. Here we go. Anyway, Western Waste Services, always at your disposal, 734-6969. We're going to have our guest with us from Colorado in just a few moments, and that's my dear friend Frosty Woldridge. Stand by. Don't forget Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, with Joel Heward, his family, and his staff. Always there when you need them. Very flexible hours, and they can even travel to some of the rural towns and churches to serve you and your family. Always treating you with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Yes, please call them today, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, serving you and your family. Right now, let's get on the phone line, and by golly, he's a dear, dear friend, and he called to give us well wishes yesterday about Green Bay's win over the Dallas Cowboys, and and Frosty, condolences to you. The Indianapolis Colts kind of chewed up the Broncos yesterday.
Yeah, well, good morning, Zeb, and congratulations to the Green Bay Packers, and I hope those folks that love the Seattle Seahawks are pretty excited. And boy, what a couple of these playoff games are even more exciting than most Super Bowls. So it was great. And unfortunately, the waning of the Broncos and Peyton Manning. Things change and time passes, and a 38-year-old quarterback's a little bit too old for a 25-year-old quarterback. So. Anyway, great entertainment, and, life goes on.
Hey, real quick, Frosty, what's the general scuttlebutt back there? Some of the reports I've had early this morning say that Peyton Manning's going to announce his retirement. He's 38 years old. What do you think?
I would think he's going to hang it up, personally. He's a Hall of Famer. There's a time when you got to hang up the spikes and or the bat, or the ball, or the gloves, or the racket, or the swim lane, and and move into your next phase of your life. And I'm thankful he didn't get paralyzed, that his neck held up, and he gave the Broncos quite a few years of fantastic wins, and got him to the Super Bowl and all that goes with that. So I'm thinking that what's going to happen is a huge change here in Denver. Probably Fox will be gone, and definitely I think Peyton Manning's going to hang it up. And so that's just my thoughts on the sideline.
All right, now something very, very serious. Frosty and I talked briefly about this subject the other day, but what in the world is going on with Obama trying to promote free community colleges and especially aid and abet illegal aliens? Tell me, Frosty, you've been right on every single thing that you've talked about on this program. What happened here?
Well, what you're seeing is a president who scammed his way into the White House. We don't know anything about this man. We don't know who Barack Hussein Obama is, other than the fact that he has a Kenyan father, and he has a Muslim Kenyan father. He has a Muslim Kenyan stepfather, Sotoro. We know that now that the facts are coming in that he got a scholarship as an Indonesian student, a foreign student, into Columbia, and somebody paid all of his monies and also got an affirmative action scholarship into Harvard. And we also know that Barack Hussein Obama is a Muslim. He has admitted it on a film. He's admitted it in front of the Stephanopoulos there at ABC. It's been shown quite a few times where he admitted being a Muslim, his Muslim faith and so forth. Well, if you're a Muslim, you get to lie. The Quran allows you to lie, to do whatever you can to further Islamic dominance of any country. And you saw that in Paris this last week. You're seeing it in Canada. You're certainly seeing it in Australia. And you're now seeing it in America. And you're seeing a president, a man who scammed his way into the White House. And history's going to prove you and me correct. I mean, I guarantee that history will prove us to be exactly correct what we said way back in 2007 when we got in all sorts of trouble on national news. And that is that here's a man who is not an American. He is not enforcing American law. He's certainly not enforcing the U.S. Constitution. And so he has broken the Constitution with an illegal, executive amnesty, which has no authority whatsoever, because it is the law that Congress passes any kind of, laws on amnesty or on immigration and all that goes with that. So what he's doing right now, just allowing more and more illegal aliens a lawful seat at the table, which they unlawfully jump the borders, is just part and parcel of what this renegade president is doing to our country, and that is exactly what's happening, and he is simply furthering his agenda to dismantle the U.S. Constitution, Seth.
You know what bugs me, and I don't know about your situation, but I had to absolutely bear down and go to work 2 jobs to pay for my college education. I'm proud that I did that. But now this gimme attitude where they said that the White House expects 9 million students to participate and save up to $3,800 a year. That would place the cost at $34.2 billion. The federal government would pay 3/4 of that. 3/4 of that, Frosty. Right now we don't have the money, and it comes right back. They say the federal government. That's you and me, Frosty Woldridge and Zeb Bell.
That's right, and I work 60 hours a week, and I'm 68 years old, for heaven's sakes. And I have never gotten a free pass from anybody. I've never gotten a free ticket for anything. And what really irritates the heck out of me is that I know for a fact, if you look out there these days, and I'm out there in our society, these college degree programs, Hispanic studies, African American studies, football. Let's face it, football is just a football study for all these kids that are going into college as student athletes. They should just quit lying about that. They're just athletes. They're not students. And so what you're seeing is a pretend to educate. It's called affirmative action college, affirmative action grading, which gives an affirmative action degree. And so often you see the results when people get out of college and they can't even write a decent sentence. They certainly can't do higher math. And you've got all of these people that are really, because they have minority status, they get plugged into jobs over and above competent American students who actually do the work. And then you have the same government is bringing in H-1B visas and all of these other insourcing and outsourcing visas and job changes so that Americans can't even get a job in their own country even though they're highly competent. So this is part and parcel of what's exactly happening to our country. And, if you all want to go on newswithviews.com this morning, you'll see my latest. It's called Part 5, Impregnating America with Muslims. Islam Forces Western Ideals into Extinction. What you're seeing is a complete deformation of America, of our values, of our personal accountability, and, of course, our personal responsibility. And if you noticed this last weekend, there was 194 car crack-up in western Michigan, and the Muslims in Detroit were cheering. They were cheering about the death and the destruction because the infidels, they had to cheer because it was Allah's will, and they were cheering it on Facebook and everything else. And, of course, as you all know, we're going to see more of what happened in Paris, France, here in the United States. So, Zeb, we're talking about an upside-down world right now, and a whole bunch of folks at some point are going to be point-blank facing reality when some of these things start happening to them.
Well, and not only that, I'm so glad you brought that subject up, but this past weekend, there were over 3.7 million people that made it from all points of the compass. The European and world leaders to show solidarity against ISIS and also Al-Qaeda right there in Paris, France. Everybody was there, all the world leaders except nobody. Nobody from Obama's administration, including himself.
Well, that's correct. You have to understand that Barack Hussein Obama is Sharia compliant. He because he is a Muslim, he can't really he cannot be a part of a march or a protest against Islam. And I want everybody to understand this. As I keep studying more and more of Islam and the Quran and do these articles that I'm writing, and I've heard some of the top speakers. This one guy named Oster, Lawrence Oster, he did a speech on preserving Western civilization and Western thought. It's a brilliant speech, and he says there are no moderate Muslims. It's like what you see is a terrorist Muslim in the end, is cheered by a moderate Muslim to do his duty. And that moderate Muslims are simply doing the same thing. They're infiltrating and they're moving into these countries, ours included. And as I keep doing more of this series, we are in serious, deep trouble as we import another 10 or 20 million more Muslims within the next 3 decades. And their numbers grow, and they simply overtake us, overwhelm us, outvote us, and institute their caliphates. The American people are in for a rude awakening, and our kids are in for an even ruder awakening. And women's rights, the ones that all of our women have fought for, from Susan B. Anthony all the way, to voting rights and certainly women's rights, and you name it, are going to take some real serious and devolving and deforming by the Islam state here in America. That's what's coming at us right now.
And one thing too I want you to comment on, Frosty, and you and I have talked about this many times in the past. It's always the blame us, you, Frosty Woolridge, me, Zeb Bell, everything, because they don't use opportunities. We are at fault because we're better educated, that we have more money in our pocket, that we live in nicer homes. Wait a minute, back the bus up for a second. If they would stop with this outrageous thinking that they can kill everybody that's in their way to try to change the world back to almost a 7th century attitude, maybe they ought to sit down and figure out how they can develop their Chamber of Commerce, how they can develop something for their goods and services to be exported, that maybe they can increase the availability for their children to go to school. Why is it always our fault because somebody else is a failure?
That is a beautiful question, and the fact is, if it wasn't for oil under the grounds of the Middle East, they would still be just tribal, Bedouins out there in the desert with their goats, and continuing, because they simply don't have the GQ, the intellectual horsepower or the cultural horsepower to release the 6th century, to release such a barbaric religion, and illiteracy drives it, and they now have the power because they're clever enough to harness C4 plastics and machine guns and go around blowing people up for drawing a cartoon. You've seen the urinated Christ. You've seen so much godforsaken caricatures of Christianity in this country, and we don't go around blowing the place up or killing people because of what they do to satire us. I want to quote this, and for those of you, go to newswithviews.com. This is what we're facing, folks. Lawrence Oster, Preserving Western Civilization Conference, Baltimore, Maryland, February 8th of 2009, said, and I quote, "The key to this liberal ideology is the belief in tolerance or non-discrimination as the ruling principle of society, the principle to which all other principles must yield. We see this belief at work in every area of modern life in America. The principle of non-discrimination must, if followed consistently, destroy every human society and institution. A society that cannot discriminate between itself and other societies will go out of existence. Just as an elm tree that cannot discriminate itself between itself and a linden tree must go out of existence. To be, we must be able to say that we are us, which means that we are different from others. If we are not allowed to distinguish ourselves between ourselves and Muslims, if we must remain open, if we must open ourselves to everyone and everything in the world that is different from us, and if the more different and threatening the other is, the more we must open ourselves, then we Americans will go out of existence," unquote.
You know, Frosty,
I think that's so powerful.
I do too, and I'm sitting here and I'm just shaking my head. Why can't society today, and I don't care if it's over in Pakistan, I don't care if it's in North Korea, I don't care if it's in Australia, I don't care where it is, why do we have to kill? Why do the terror people in our society, i.e. ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and also Boko Haram, employ little children, 10-year-old children over in Nigeria, and teach them how to strap on a bomb and then walk into a crowded marketplace and pull the string and kill and maim and kill some more? What in the world is the matter with our society?
Well, Zeb, You know, there was 130 kids that got killed in Pakistan at a school.
Yeah.
It was, you know, higher up school. And that's the nature of Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, if you read the Quran, and I've read some pretty good parts of it, it says to go out and convert or kill all non-believers. It goes out and tells, there's a video how to beat your wife without having any markings on her, how to beat her. Some guy right now in Saudi Arabia, just a father of 3 children and a wife, he had a blog, and now he's getting beaten 50 lashes for the next 20 weeks in a public square, and then he goes to jail for 10 years for having a blog saying that Muslims in Saudi Arabia have the right to free speech. Well, he's finding out that he cannot have free speech. He was beaten 50 lashes yesterday, and for the next 20 weeks he'll get beaten with 20 lashes until he then goes to jail for the next 10 years. We are, as a civilization, and you know, again, I'll remark each week, capsweb.org, join it, tell all your friends, of course, numbersusa.org. We have got to stop Muslim immigration in the United States by a national coalition of Americans to say, enough, we need to change the immigration laws and literally no more immigration by Muslims and reduce all immigration to less than 100,000 per year. If we think we're going to survive the 21st century, we better start taking action in that direction, Zeb, or we are not going to make it through this century.
Absolutely, and then you hear so much about the amnesty to 5 million, and you and I both have said on this program for months and months and months, 5 million, are you kidding? It's probably going to be more like 25 million and up, and this administration is lying through their teeth.
Well, again, yes, they are lying through their teeth, and we are going to be the recipients of this unbelievable flood of humanity that is poverty-stricken. And as I've said, over 140 different worldviews, with 140 different, religions from those third world countries, and certainly, failed cultures, 140 different failed cultures, and of course, all of the languages. I got to tell you, please, each person listening to the Zeb at the Ranch, I'm not the only one speaking up like this. You've got to take action. You're getting educated far beyond the mainstream media. You won't hear this from Brian Williams or David Muir or Scott Pelley. You won't hear it from Charlie Rose. You won't hear it from Stephanopoulos. You won't get it from Diane Sawyer. What's happening to our country is we're being overrun. And all of these liberals at the top of this thing think it's all going to turn out to be hunky-dory. One look at Paris, France will tell you it's not going to be hunky-dory. And Paris, France, ladies and gentlemen, is coming to America, whether it's Fort Dick 6 or whether it's the Fort Hood killings or whether it's the train bomber out of Denver who was getting ready to bomb the New York subways, or whether it's female genital mutilation or the honor killings. We're in the crosshairs of Islam's war on the Western world and Western thought, and we better get serious very soon. I mean, like now.
I couldn't agree more. Everything you said on this program about immigration or the lack of policies for immigration have come true. And, I almost wish, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I almost wish that you were wrong on some of these things, because some of these are so clandestine and dangerous, but yet they're coming to fruition.
I wish I was wrong, too. And the trouble is, everything that I've researched and everything I've done in my world travels, I know I'm right.
Yeah.
I know I'm dead on the money. I am so correct. You are so correct. I mean, we already have over 35 to 40 Muslim training terrorist camps in this country. In fact, I put that in the article. This video shows Muslim training camps right here in America. It will curl your senses. And the video is right here. The guy went out and he filmed them all. And these guys are talking how they're going to literally take over America. They plan to bring all women in this country to wear the hijab, which is totally covers a woman from her top of her head to her feet, and that he's going to the flag of Islam is going to fly over the White House. This guy says it as a matter of fact. 2 videos in this article. So, Zeb, this is serious stuff. We need to stop mass immigration into the United States of America, period. We need to do that now. Each person listening, I've given you the tools, the websites. capsweb.org, numbersusa.org, fair, FAIRUS.org. Tell everybody and your mother to join them, and we must get a national consensus and discussion on what we face as a civilization.
I got to run, but I just want to end it all by saying I felt so bad about your Broncos getting kicked out of the playoffs that if my Green Bay Packers beat the Seattle Seahawks this next weekend, I will send you, out of the goodness of my heart, another Zeb at the Ranch steak knife.
And I will, just out of the goodness of my heart, I will use it for my tofu sandwiches.
God bless you, man. Thanks. Have a good day, Frosty. Thank you. Frosty Woldridge, Golden, Colorado. Dear friend, thank you so much. Hey, don't forget our friends, and they are our friends at Let's Ride, Highway 24, between Rupert and Burley. Exactly 270 Highway 24. And that's where the fun is sold. Yes, sirree, Bobby. They've got all the snowmobiles. Yep, they got the brand new skidoos and all the accessories. And now's the time to get your four-wheeler service. That is so true. Don't wait till like next April or May. Get it in there right now. They got a super service department and get everything taken care of. Call, make an appointment, and they've got the best of mechanics working right there at Let's Ride. Once again, this is where the fun is sold. Highway 24, Let's Ride. You stop in. They've got something for everyone. Oh, my. Let's see, what else have we got cooking here, Rook? Oh, by the way, too, I want to remind you about our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24. Boy, that's a busy highway. 24 between Rupert and Burley. You better believe it. All your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of it there to serve you and make sure that you are protected. Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens, very accessible and devoted to serving others. Call them, please. 436-4424. 436-4424, Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Gonna go to the phone lines right now, and actually the old flu bug is feeling a little better this morning after I got started on the air. I'll say that, and then the last hour I'll lose my voice. But anyway, let's say good morning to Alliance Defending Freedom attorney Rory Gray. Rory, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Velvet. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I tell you what, the only Rory I ever knew was Rory Calhoun, cowboy and western actor from way back in the 50s and 60s. Are you one like him, or what's your background, Rory?
I am from Oregon, so I am from the West, and actually that is where my parents found the name. So my dad was a big fan of David Calhoun.
Okay.
Rory Calhoun, sorry.
All right. Well, now, I want to get serious here this morning because, holy smokes, there's a couple of stories going on that you're involved in. And give us a little background on what's happening with the free speech issue that the Supreme Court's going to be looking at, I believe, today.
Yes, actually, Zeb, I'm sitting outside the Supreme Court right now. We just finished the oral argument. David Cordman, our senior counsel and the head of our litigation department, just argued that case. And it's a case that involves church directional signs in the town of Gilbert, Arizona. The town severely limits those signs to a very small size and only allows them to be up for a very short period of time, but it allows political signs and ideological signs to be up pretty much all year. And so the Supreme Court today heard arguments in that case, and we're very, very hopeful after the argument that just happened that we will get a victory in that case.
Okay, now, Rory, I want to be a little bit more explicit for my audience. Evidently, in the town of Gilbert, Arizona, and correct me if I say anything wrong, the town council had said, well, if you're a politician, you can have a sign that's about the size of a building, and if you're involved in anything else, you can put your signs up. But when it comes to churches, they wanted more stricter rules to church signs. Why? Why would they prohibit or inhibit a church sign? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you're correct that originally the code actually singled out church signs for special limitations. After we filed our lawsuit, the town obviously had to change that. And so then they expanded the group of sort of people who are subject to the back of the free speech bus limitations to include other nonprofit speakers and people basically sending people to an event. And they tried to defend that today by saying ideological signs and political signs have free speech value and that directional signs don't. But the justices didn't seem to buy that argument.
So give me your gut reaction on this, Rory. Do you think that the Supreme Court is going to say, wait a minute, Gilbert and any other community, you're not going to show any unconscionable discrimination against churches. You're going to let some politician that's got a great big cigar hanging out of his mouth, you're going to let him put up a 6 foot by 6 foot sign, so can the churches. Do you think they're going to rule in that regard?
Well, I think Justice Scalia made that point really well. He actually said, well, this is not very surprising. This rule was made by a bunch of politicians who like political speech, and so they favor that speech. But he said he didn't want, and we shouldn't want, the government and even judges or justices deciding which speech is more important. And obviously the church thinks that its speech, which is trying to lead people to Jesus Christ, is much more important than political speech, and so that's why we're here.
Well, I just want to wish you the very best of success. Do you have time to talk about another case in regards to the cake shop owners and how they've been discriminated against? Could you give us your thoughts on that case in Colorado?
Yes, that's the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, and we actually just filed an appeal of the Colorado Human Rights Commission's order in that case, which basically subjects our client, who is a baker who doesn't want to bake cakes specifically to celebrate same-sex weddings because you go against his religious beliefs, to a re-education program and the reporting requirements to where he has to basically serve anyone, including who wants a message on any baked item, even if he disagrees with it, and he has to tell the commission every time he says that he won't fulfill an order for any reason, and he has to re-educate his employees and to serve same-sex couples who want wedding cakes. And we have appealed that to the Colorado Court of Appeals, and we are hopeful that our First Amendment arguments will get some traction there. The Human Rights Commission basically dismissed them and didn't pay any attention to our constitutional arguments.
Well, let me ask you something, and I'm having a hard time hearing you all of a sudden, Rory. Your cell phone is picking up some background noise, so if you can stand really still and not move it, I'd sure appreciate it. But I am sick and tired of the government weighing in on who or what I have to do business with. I still maintain that if they're going to hang a sign up on the business that said, we reserve the right to refuse business for blah, 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 that's fine. It's my business. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to have a government Gestapo tell me I have to. Am I wrong in my thinking?
Well, for most of our history, that's the way it was in America. And unfortunately, there have been a lot of what we call new public accommodation laws in the states have passed, which basically tell you that if you open a business, you're sort of become an indentured servant to anyone who walks through the door. And our client in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case is happy to serve gay customers and to make them baked goods. He just doesn't want to celebrate same-sex weddings, regardless of who's ordering the cake, whether it's a straight person, a gay person, or somebody else. And we think that that's something that the First Amendment requires, and we're going to court to protect his right to say no to doing that.
Yeah, but Rory, when you make a dictate to these businesses and the government says you will have compliance reports, you will talk about your patrons, we will talk about your people that worked for you, and if you haven't followed exactly what we say, we're going to come in and fine you or shut you down. Isn't that just basic government brainwashing and taking away our rights of free speech?
It's definitely taking away our rights to believe, to basically abide by traditional Christian beliefs and to act in accordance with those beliefs. And that's why Alliance Defending Freedom has taken on several of these types of cases involving florists and cake bakers and photographers who can't in good conscience basically celebrate same-sex weddings they don't believe in.
Okay, well now I can tell you're standing, like you said, right out. Are you on the steps right now of the Supreme Court? Give us a little background there.
I'm actually in a car going from the court to where the lunch is for the people who wrote briefs supporting us in the Reed case.
Okay, well, I certainly appreciate firsthand information. Is this the first time that you've actually been there when the mechanics of our laws were being enforced and or talked about by the Supreme Court? It must be kind of a very interesting day for you.
It is. It's a fascinating experience. This is actually the second time I've gotten to do this because I also worked on the Conestoga case, which involved a Mennonite company out of Pennsylvania that made cabinets that didn't want to include abortion-inducing drugs in their healthcare plan, and that was resolved with the Hobby Lobby case. And so when that case was argued last spring, I was actually there for that too.
Give us a little bit about the protocol. Is going in front of the Supreme Court so much different than possibly going into any other court? I mean, do you have a great feeling of inferiority, or what happens when you walk in the room? I mean, what's it like?
Well, first, it is very different, partially because the security is so much greater. You have to go through twice before you actually even get into a courtroom. And it is a beautiful historic building. And you're just very overcome with a sense of the importance of what happens there. This courtroom is actually much smaller, I think, than people realize. And so you're actually very close to the justices when you're sitting in there, and you can see their reactions and the way that they move and speak to each other during the argument. And it also just gives you a real sense of how personal the law is, and that they know most of the lawyers who come before them, and that it's a very elite club when you get to argue before the Supreme Court. So we're very happy today that David Cortman, who's the head of our litigation department at the Alliance Defending Freedom, got to join that club and argue before the court this morning.
Wow, that's really something. I'm proud of you. Well, it's the name Rory. That's why you got selected to go back there, man. They know you're tough. Hey, listen, Rory Gray, God bless you, man, and tell everybody how they can follow these stories with the Alliance Defending Freedom.
The best way is actually to like us on Facebook. If you go to the Alliance Defending Freedom Facebook page and like us there, you'll get periodic things on your feed, news stories that will come up about what we're doing, and you can also go to AllianceDefendingFreedom.org.
All right, there you go, Rory Gray with Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you very much, Rory. God's blessings to you, and keep on fighting for us, okay?
Thank you very much, Seb. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Wow, that's got to be a little bit intimidating. Seriously. It's first time or second time to go and argue your case in front of the nation's Supreme Court. Woohoo! Wow. He did a good job along with David Cortman, and we're going to have David Cortman, I hope, on the air next week, and we'll talk more about this. Hey, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know what? Mount Harrison Audiology wants you to remember that hearing loss is not something that you should just take for granted. No, no, no. About 20% of the adults in the United States, 48 million people, report some degree of hearing loss, and at age 65, 1 out of 3 people has hearing loss. Well, you'd better get a hold of Christine Pickup by calling 312-0957. That number again, 312-0957, and have your hearing checked. Absolutely. Don't miss out on things. Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 1218 9th Street, Unit 2, right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. Write that number down and remember it. Call her right now, 312-0957. Did you hear that? I hope so. You know what? Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We'll talk about anything you want to for the remainder of this hour. I was told just a little bit ago that the interview was going to be cut short because of travel with the attorney Rory Gray, so I apologize for that. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear about Mitt Romney? Now, he may be saying yes to running for the presidency. What are your thoughts on the division, let's say, between the Republicans possibly supporting Jeb Bush and or Mitt Romney? To me, it's a slam dunk. I do not want Jeb Bush as the nominee and possible presidential selection. Don't like him. Don't like his viewpoints. I don't like his stand on immigration. I don't like his change that he's had on same-sex marriage. I don't like his attitude on Common Core education. Don't like him. And as I said in my blog this past weekend, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, I don't want to see another Bush in the White House that we have to water and nurture. No. Would you be in favor of Mitt Romney? That's a question I'd like you to answer for the remainder of this hour. If he decides to run, will he, can he, or could he, or should he get enough support to beat the Democratic nominee? Now that leads us to the next part of the story as to whether or not it's going to be Hillary. Boy, I hope not. Boy, I hope she doesn't even get a chance to go to the Oval Office unless it's on a paid tour. What are your thoughts about politics that's getting scarier and scarier every day as to who's going to run, who might win, and is it going to be the same old, same old? Give me a call on that. I'd like to hear your thoughts. While I'm waiting for your calls, come on, folks, jump in. I want to remind you about our friends at Urgent Care of Jerome, 133 West Avenue A, Suite B in Jerome. Absolutely minor emergencies, major care. They will see you today. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't hang up. I want to just tell everybody about Urgent Care of Jerome. Naturally, they treat everyday injuries and illnesses. Typical ailments include, but are not limited to, like sprains and strains and fractures and injuries due to accidents. They are there to serve you. All you have to do is give them a call. 324-2004. 324-2004. Urgent Care of Jerome. Right now, here is Michael Rogers weather.
Hey everyone, Michael Rogers or Zeb of the Ranch. Got a yucky day for today, tonight, and tomorrow. But from tomorrow night all the way to Friday, make that Saturday, you got some pretty nice looking weather and cooler temperatures. 40s for the daytime highs, upper 20s for the overnight lows. Should be an inch on the ground of possible snow at the end of the night going into tomorrow. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael, and brought to you by Urgent Care of Jerome, 133 West Avenue A, Suite B in Jerome, 324-2004. They will see you today. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, if Romney hadn't thrown the last election, he'd be president.
Oh, now, wait a minute, caller. Wait a minute. Why do you say things like that, that he threw the last election? Why? What do you say that for?
Watch the debates. The first one he won hands down. After that, he didn't even try.
Well, now let's talk a little bit about that in fairness, and that's what I want is fairness. Number one, Candy Crowley from CNN was the one that absolutely destroyed that second debate when she weighed in, and weighed is a good thing to say with her and her heft, and destroyed the question and answer period that was going on between Obama and Romney. So I think you will also say in fairness that liberalism and Candy Crowley put more of a chill on the debate than anybody did.
Romney has a mouth. All he had to do was open it.
Well, I'm not arguing that, but you know what? I thought he was too much of a gentleman for that current situation. Now, going to the last debate, I will agree with you that it wasn't as dynamic. I don't know why. I'm not going to say that he threw the debate, but I'm going to say that he lost his dynamicism, and it was over. It was a slam dunk.
At any rate, we don't need him. Get somebody with some backbone to run.
I'm not going to argue that, so throw me a name. Go ahead.
Ted Cruz.
Okay, I'll buy that. I like that name.
How about Mike Lee?
I don't think he's prepared for it yet, but he could be in the future.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you for your call. I do appreciate it very much. He brought up some names that I agree with. I like Ted Cruz. I don't care if somebody says, "Oh, Zeb, what's the matter with?" Listen, I wrote about it in the blog. I am so sick and tired of the McCains. I am absolutely pathetically sick and tired of the McConnells, and I'm sick of the John Boehners. Okay? And yes, when Crapo finally calls on this program, I'm going to say the same thing to him. I'm fed up with these guys. I don't want that old school. I called them F Troop. F Troop. Now it's time for the A Team. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Deb, I 100% support Mitt Romney running again. And I'll tell you why. Because the United States economy should be the largest economy in the world. It should be the biggest, if you want to put it that way, the biggest business in the world. And at this point, it's been downgraded to such a third world status almost. And I think that Mitt Romney is the only person qualified out there to bring us back into a financial place on a worldwide scale. And I support a lot of these other candidates. And if Mitt Romney does not get the candidacy, then I would support fully 100% anybody else who is put in his place, not necessarily because I like them best, but because anybody the Republican Party chooses would be better than anybody the Democratic Party chooses. And the vote, so I'm not voting for anybody that the Republicans choose would be a vote for the Democrats, and I think that's completely asinine, and it's behaving like a child, and I personally am looking forward of adults behaving like children because they don't get exactly what they want out of this political crap.
I agree with your statement. That was very well stated. Thank you so much for your phone call this morning. Very well put forth. Thank you. Caller, I'll be right there. I just want to say this. I don't like Jeb Bush. I'll say it again. I don't want Jeb Bush in office. Do I have disrespect or anything negative to say about the family? No. We've seen two already serve in the highest office of the land, and I just don't think that Jeb Bush, with his stance and his changes on his stances, and he has, is going to be good for anybody. I don't like him. I would love to see the old guard issued out and a new guard take over. Good morning, caller. Sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Jeb. I think I agree with you basically that I think that I don't know what percent, but the majority of the American voters are tired of the old guard. They're tired of the same old people saying the same old things. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think this upcoming presidential election is going to be decided by, whether it's conservative or liberal. I think there's going to be bigger things happening that will involve our country in.
Well, like what? Like what? Go ahead and give me an example.
International scene.
Give me an example, caller.
We're still a long ways out from the election, and probably some of the more conservative people who, I think they do have the sense that the American people are tired of politics rather than governance, and I think that they're going to. I think in the next year or leading up to the election that they're going to become more prominent, and I think probably they will have to events will bring them to the fore where they have to show leadership and statesmanship, because we have a lot of good people there, but they don't have any seniority yet.
I agree.
And I think the problems are going to trump this good old boy system of seniority, and I'm talking on both sides of the liberal and conservative.
Yeah.
That's what I think might happen.
Let me ask you a quick question, short answer. If torn between Romney and or Jeb Bush, who are you going to try to vote for?
Well, I would vote for Romney.
Okay. All right. I buy that.
That's just my. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very well stated. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, I was pleased to see that Romney was going to run. I'd take Romney 2-1 over Zeb Bush.
Well, you and I are basically out of the same cloth. I have never thought the politics with Jeb Bush was that dynamic. To me, he's like watching a crack dry up on the pavement after a rainstorm. He's not very exciting.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess. No, he don't impress me at all. And I don't like his politics.
Well, I don't also not like his politics, Fred. I don't like his lack of really speaking out with passion on how to change things. And we've got a lot of things that need to be changed, and right now, I know it's in the preliminaries. I know somebody's going to say, well, they haven't even had a debate yet. But Jeb Bush, honestly, I'd rather watch two angleworms race than I would listen to him.
I would too, there's no question about that. But I do have a lot of faith in Mitt Romney.
I do too.
Because he has done some good before.
I do too. Fred?
Straightening out things that have been a mess.
I agree. Always good to hear from you, my friend. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see what the next caller's got to say. God bless you, man. Thanks.
Sounds like winter.
Thank you. You know, the caller earlier that said, you know, he kind of threw the debates. There's a lot of people that agree with that caller. There's a lot of people that are saying, wait a minute, he's got a mouth, like that caller said. And I agree with the caller. I wasn't trying to argue with him. I agree with him that Romney could have stood up like Matt Dillon in Dodge City and said, that's it. And he could have stopped Candy Crowley, which he should have. And he said, wait a minute, Miss Crowley, you interrupted me and my point. Don't do that again, please. I will finish my statement. Thank you very much. And he could have gone on, and she would have just absolutely withdrawn into her little cave where she should have been. She had no business to interrupt at that juncture. And Romney could have continued on with his attack on Obama's policies, which he should have. But it was from that point on that it seemed like the air and the wind came out of the balloon for Romney. And I agree with that caller earlier that if you're going to run, you got to stand up and you're not going to be cowed. You've got to be really, really tough and look somebody in the eye and say, like Candy Crowley with CNN, please be quiet, sit there, and do only your job as a moderator and don't interfere. Should have done that. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. She's such a repugnant commentator on CNN anyway. I just can't stand that woman. Who would you rather have, Romney or Bush or someone else? Quite frankly, the or someone else category leaves the door open, I think, for a lot of good people. I was not kidding earlier this morning when I said that 7 times this weekend on various news shows, there was John McCain. I don't care about John McCain. I couldn't care less about John McCain. John McCain has nothing to offer me politically. John McCain's opinion has nothing to offer me because I've heard it be so wishy-washy in the past. Get him off of there! Get some young blood in there. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. I wanted to tell you about a letter that I got recently that actually, if the United States and some of the people in the Congress who really can do such things could prove that Obama is not even a legal citizen of the United States, they could get him impeached, and also it would just take away all of the, particularly the laws that he has edicted out of his little mouth, and maybe we could clean up our country a little bit.
I would love to see that happen, Chris, but you know as well as I do that the Bill O'Reillys and the others that have a vacuum in their cranium would come after us and call us the hate mongers and everything else, and they just live in their own little world. I have never thought that this man is legal. I have never thought this man was qualified, and I've stated so for the last 6.5 years.
So if they wait until he's out of office and prove that he wasn't legal, so what is that going to do? Then his rules that he's brought into being just go on. But Nana Liza, Americans have got to stand up and stand up for something.
Amen.
Because this is just so scary. Our country is disappearing right in front of us.
Well, go back to what I said a minute ago. I want to hear your opinion. I've only got 30 seconds left, so make it short.
Okay.
Romney, Jeb Bush, or someone else. Give me your attitude on this, because I don't really want Romney or Bush. I'm in favor of bringing in the A-team.
I think we need a junkyard dog. Somebody that tells it like it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
I think those two guys are too much of a gentleman.
I think Romney is, and that's going to be his downfall, because you need somebody that when something happens at a debate like the deal with Candy Crowley, you need somebody to stand up and say, sit down, shut up, and don't do it again.
Right.
All right.
Goodbye.
Chris, God bless you. Thank you. Nice lady right there. I'll be back in about 6 minutes right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Don't go away. Holy cow. I don't know how much snow you've got over there, Gina, but we got well over maybe 2 inches over here.
We don't have any. It's just raining.
Are you kidding me?
Not joking. Just rain.
Deanne, she doesn't have any over at the station. It's just raining. Would you please go outside with a snow shovel and put some in a bucket, and we're going to drive it over to her and put it on her desk right now? Good heavens, you got to share in the wealth. I can't believe that. Anyway, good morning, Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and, of course, some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Get rid of your garbage. Locally owned and operated, serving you, 734-6969. We're going to have our guest with us in just a minute, a good old friend of mine, but stand by. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. What's on the menu for a special today? Oh, this is a good one. Crispy, spicy chicken melt on white bread with choice of potato and super salad. Always a great special every day. Great menu items. Super nice people. Always service impeccable. At the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Let's go to the phone lines right now, and I tell you what, I am so frustrated over this nation's lack of energy, proposals, and programs, especially with this idiocy and incompetency from the Obama administration. I think this guy's going to agree with me. He's a dear friend from the Institute of Energy Research, Dan Kish. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm hungry. I was listening in and I heard you describing that. All of a sudden my belly's making noise.
Well, listen, I wish you were here. I'd buy you lunch. You've been a great friend of this program for a long time, Dan. Dan, what in the world, this White House, I'm beginning to wonder that this is not majority rules in this country. It's not what the people want. It's only what a handful of politicians with their own ideology, that's what they want, that's what they get. Isn't that true with Obama?
Yeah, Zeb, I'll tell you, I think we ought to stop kidding ourselves about what we've got here. We've got basically somebody who says it's my way or the highway, and by the way, we don't like the way the United States has been doing business. We don't like, frankly, they don't like these low oil prices. They don't like, finally Americans are taking a breather and saying, boy, it's kind of nice to finally be able to pump some gas or diesel and save this money, and here they are in the back rooms and down in the basements of these buildings here in Washington looking for all kinds of ways to turn the tables on that, because it doesn't fit the agenda. It doesn't fit what, the eggheads in the colleges who are sitting around the faculty rooms think ought to be happening in the United States, which is much more expensive gasoline and much more expensive energy. I think Americans are with a resounding voice saying, we love the price of gas being lower.
Yeah. Now, Dan, what you just said is really, I think, the truth. I have never, since last week, I've been on the phone to many, many people. A lot of people that work for oil companies, a lot of people that work for various think tanks, and what you just said is basically the quote, I think, of all of them, that this administration and behind the scenes, behind closed doors, they are looking for any loophole they can find to run these prices back up again.
That's right. I mean, the president wasn't kidding back when he said that under his plan, electricity prices would skyrocket, and his energy secretary wasn't kidding when he said he thought we ought to be paying, about what Europe pays for its gasoline, which is all due to taxes, which at the time was in a range of $9 a gallon. I mean, people, they think it's a sin. You know, they don't take a lot of things for sin in the United States. I'm not going to go into that. But the fact of the matter is, the things that they think are sinful are Americans not paying a huge amount of their paycheck for energy, or Americans and our Canadian neighbors making more energy to get us off our dependence from other people around the world, which we've been doing with no pay or no help from the government at all. And now that things have got better, we're going to just have to be watching at every turn, because they've got all kinds of plans for them to change that.
What do you anticipate? And by the way, Dan, I'm assuming you're on a cell phone. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I apologize.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. We're having just a little trouble hearing you, but we'll do our best. We have a caller with a question, and then I want to ask you another question about the EPA, et cetera. So stand by. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, caller. Go ahead, quickly.
Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah, I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that some of our politicians in Washington are looking to add some exorbitant taxes to the fuel to bring the price up. I don't know if that's true or not.
All right, we'll have Dan Kish elaborate on that. Dan, I read an article the other day that goes in along accordance with what the caller just said, that many of the eastern states are saying, oh, now's the time to really stick a high gas tax higher and higher because of the prices being so low. What are your thoughts on this?
That's exactly right, Zeb. Your caller is exactly right. There are all kinds of proposals popping right now in Washington here and in, New York City and the like, talking about, oh, well, now's the time. Now's the time to raise the gas tax because people are paying less for their energy, and then we can, build more artwork along the highways or whatever they got planned. Rather than try to concentrate on making sure that the money we spend on our roads goes for roads and not a bunch of nonsense that they've been doing with it. That they're looking at this as an opportunity to raise taxes, and some of the talking heads, people who generally take this opportunity to go ahead and look at, and then of course the Obama administration's been wanting just chomping at the bit to come out with some justification for a carbon tax, which would cost us on all of our energy bills. If it is hydrocarbon based, and about 90% of our energy is hydrocarbon based.
Dan, let me ask you, I'm very afraid of the EPA. I would love to be the person that could walk into the EPA office and fire each and every one of these people and add them to the unemployment rolls. But now they're also coming out against livestock and livestock operations because of methane gas emissions. How serious should we take this?
Very seriously, Zeb. You're absolutely right. I mean, we've seen it with the Waters of the United States thing, too, where they want to regulate every last drop of water, no matter who it belongs to, because they hate the sense of private property, it seems. Can't understand the people would actually own water rights. So they're going after that whole thing, too. So if there's a piece of your land that has some water on it, temporarily because it rained, that gives them justification to control what you do on that land. So at every turn, it's always that. It's really easy. I mean, you just got to step back from them and say, okay, if anything out there is happening that they haven't got a say-so in, they want to have a say-so in it. They want you to ask their permission before you do whatever it is, whether it's your livestock, your farm, your business, your vehicle, you name it. It's you got to ask permission from Washington, and that's what it's all about. Unless our states start fighting back, and I'm hoping they will, and fighting back hard, not just saying they're going to fight back, but actually fighting back at the state level and say, no more, Washington, you can't boss our people around, our citizens, and we're tired of you grabbing these powers from that are rightfully ours under the Constitution from our states. And I think that's the answer. I think that's the way forward. This true in Washington is you just got to cut off. You got to cut them off.
Dan, it's easy to say that, and I'm not at all making what you said minuscule, but it's easy to say that, but I wonder and I question. When I look at the Republican leadership that's taken over the Senate, I'm seeing the same old, same old. What are you seeing?
Well, I think there's a lot of that, Jeb. I mean, part of that's tempered. I'll give them a little bit of leeway because part of it's tempered. They know what they're up against in terms of the deck is stacked against them. So even if they wanted to do these things, they realize since the president has the powers that he has and he's still got sufficient votes in the Senate, he can do it. But I have to tell you, I mean, I think it's only now beginning to dawn on some of these folks in Washington just exactly how the Constitution works, and why it is we have to move. I'm actually optimistic. I think we're seeing movement. I think people are beginning to grow in their understanding, only because it's been stretched to the limit, and so many of our freedoms and liberties have come under assault. Are people finally starting to go back to basics and say, well, wait a minute, how did it ever get to a point where Washington can basically say it wants to control everything it is we do throughout the entire United States? So my hope is that the Washington folks will get the message, and all I can urge people to do is if they've got a voice, let it be heard so that all of our people will be taking that message back to Washington.
Absolutely. Caller with the question, go ahead, please. Quickly, you're on the air.
Yeah, I heard you mention water and all, and I was just wondering, would the EPA do something if they learned that you had a pond on your property 40 years ago and got rid of it?
Dan, what about that? How intrusive is the EPA, in your opinion, going to be?
Well, Zeb, I mean, that's the question, and your callers right to be worried. We don't know exactly what they will declare their powers to be. That's the problem with having a centralized government, and that's the problem with having them try to assert themselves in these things at all. They can come up and, as you know, they kind of make up the rules as they see fit, and if they see some justification for reaching in retroactively, they can cook up. They got lots of people who can write fancy papers, even though they make no sense whatsoever and don't follow any of the underpinnings of the basic Judeo-Christian law that founded our country. So they'll try whatever they can get away with. And it's really about an attempt to try to get there, to make you heal, to bring you to heal. This is pretty simple. You know, this is the alpha male. They want to be the alpha male.
Let me ask you this. I want to go back a little bit in our conversation, Dan. We were talking about methane emissions. Are livestock organizations like the United Dairymen and also the NCBA, are they gearing up for a fight, or are they just going to kowtow to whatever the government says? I mean, are they really starting to get their armor on for battle when it comes to the denigration of their industries, or is it just kind of playing like a bump in the road? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of alarm bells have been going off. A lot of this stuff we wouldn't have even guessed that the government would be attempting to do. It's really hard for people to finally cross the Rubicon and see just exactly how bad these threats are becoming. And so I think a lot of the groups are beginning to really ramp it up. And all I can say is the best way for these groups to continue to do that, because there's always some folks who just want to say, well, let's just go along with it and see how, maybe they'll talk to us and allow us to keep some of our rights if we just talk to them. That's appeasement, and it doesn't work. It didn't work in, before World War II. It's not going to work now. And so if people are talking to their organizations, please, by all means, make their voices heard. Let them know you're not happy about people trying to cut a deal with Washington, because once you give away something you've got set, these folks here will just come back for them for whatever it is you've got remaining.
That's right.
They never stop.
That's right. I don't care if they're listening in down in Salt Lake City area with the NSA. I don't care if they've got my show targeted. I'm just going to come right out and say it. The American public had better plan on the preservation of our Constitution and our rights, possibly through a one word that nobody wants to use anymore, and that's a revolution. Dan, we've got to stand up for ourselves. We're being run over like rocks in the bottom of a pothole.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see how they treat us. We all got a treat of this stuff. Just a couple of months ago, when all of a sudden they peeled back the curtain on the folks who were designing the health care, and it turns out he thinks all of us are too stupid. And it's not just the Obamacare thing, it's everything. They believe that basically if they just keep pushing, if they've got enough money, and that's the other thing, we got to cut off their money, it's what gives them powers. If they can continue to just push and push and push, they'll get their way, and then we'll all just get used to it. That eventually the sheep will follow, even though they might not like it. And we just saw that in as clear an example as possible when he's basically saying, well, we just have to lie and cheat and steal in order to get these things that we want, and then people will go on it because people are just basically stupid. So let's just do what we want and we'll get our way. And they do that with all of this stuff. So they can have meetings and they talk it up and they sound reasonable, and you scratch your head and you say, well, it doesn't sound so bad after all. They don't mean it.
What about, Dan, looking off, hopefully, in the way distant future, but we've talked about this before, more hidden energy taxes on American households, including possibly even carbon cards? That's not out of the realm of possibility, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, I don't foresee a situation where they've got us carrying them around, but every industry in this United States, they'd like to make them carry them around or to check them off. And of course, the administration is working through the United Nations on ways later this year to come up with, to try to restrict the amount of energy we can use in the United States, or at least the amount of carbon dioxide we can put out. So that forces us into the arms of their, crony capitalists that produces sort of energy that Americans don't necessarily want to buy, but they want us to force us to buy them. Again, it's about everything you do, whether it's you exhale and give off carbon dioxide, or use energy and give off carbon dioxide, or have a pothole in your back 40. If you want to do something different with it than what they want you to do with it, they want to have a hand in it, and they want to have a say in it. So be on guard.
Let me ask you one final thought here, Dan, in regards to Keystone Pipeline. I personally think that regardless of the current status of energy and energy pricing, the Keystone Pipeline is very, very important to have. Will the Republicans maintain some kind of a composure factor to where they're going to demand it and keep on demanding it? What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of commitment, and it's actually, in this respect, there's at least some bipartisan commitment to that. The Senate this week will be taking it up, and a lot of this is going to be regional, or whether folks represent states where people actually make something. And so we're going to see bipartisan support for the Keystone XL. And you're right, the Keystone has become much more than just the Keystone itself. It's really... This is a vote about whether or not you want to go forward in the United States, or whether you basically want a situation where we just decided to throw in the towel and turn in our hard hats because we can't build anything. And that's what it's become for everyone. It's really about whether or not Americans are going to be allowed to go back to work, building things that benefit us immediately and in the long run, and whether or not we're going to take advantage of our own energy, or whether we're going to yield to some of these folks who say that we should not use any more oil, any more gas, any more coal, and it's time we start running our country on windmills and solar panels. And that ain't going to happen. We're not going to be the same nation if it does.
You know, one final thought here, Dan. What about a revolution of production? In other words, what about just going ahead and saying, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We don't care what the government says, we're going to increase our coal production. We don't care what the government says, we're going to increase our fracking. We don't care what the government says, we're going to increase the amount of oil coming out of the Dakotas and Montana. We're going to do this for America. What would happen, in your opinion, or am I way off base by even thinking of something like that?
Yeah. Well, Zeb, I'll tell you, in a lot of respects, you're absolutely accurate about what would, I mean, you're detailing exactly what did happen. Remember, all this new oil, the reason we got lower gas prices is because we produce a lot more oil in the United States, and our Canadian friends did as well. And that made prices go down, even when the government told us 2 years ago, well, gee, we can't drill our way to lower gas prices. All of that happened because, not because they said, well, we're just going to do it, breaking the law or something. It happened because of private land. And it happened because of private property, and it happened because of farmers and ranchers and other landowners saying, you bet, I'm happy to take a royalty check if you produce oil in my land. And that's what happened. And so without the government doing anything, we actually drove down gas prices.
Yep.
So the same thing would happen if we did this with all of these things. And when you have low energy prices, it makes you a better place to make things, and we can go back to making things and retaining some of our workshop of the world capabilities that we've got. I mean, it would be like sprinkling fertilizer on every field in America.
Absolutely. Dan, you're the best. Energy Research, Dan Kish, thank you so much for being on the program. I'll extend to you kind of a late Happy New Year, but the very best to you, my friend, and I'll look forward to having you come back. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed. Next time we'll do it on a landline, so we...
All right, sir. God bless you, man. Thank you so much. Institute of Energy Research, Dan Kish. He is one of the best. I appreciate him very, very much. Don't forget, on Thursdays, we have a segment on our program called School Days in Cassia County, when we talk all about what's going on with the school systems in Cassia County. And it's brought to you by a couple of real nice businesses, A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. And, they're having that huge winter sale right now, 30% off on winter clothes and shoes. And by the way, if you're looking for baby presents, they got baby sleepers for $15, and you can get it gift wrap for free, as I almost choked to death. And don't forget, too, they carry all the Cherokee and Dickey scrubs, too, at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. Also want to remind you, too, about the Ambulatory Surgery Center. You know, they really can help you with all the surgeries maybe you've been putting off. Well, maybe you should give them a call at 677-8888. They're located at 1344 Highland in Burley. And check out, perhaps you're having numbness in your hands. It might be carpal tunnel syndrome and knee pain, or maybe you should be checking out a life-saving colonoscopy. All of these and more at the Ambulatory Surgery Center, 677-8888, 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Along with The Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County. We are going to take a little break and go back over to the main studios. I can tell you I've got quite a bit of snow on the ground here. It's been snowing all morning long, and we'll send it back over to Gina, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh my, as I said, the snow is flying outside, and we got a pretty good accumulation over here. And right now, we're going to go to the phone lines, and I'm
dialing him now.
I beg your pardon? Oh, she's
dialing now.
Dialing now for dollars. Anyway, we're going to have Representative Fred Wood come on our program in just a few moments. Right now, in the swing of things going on up at the legislative session for 2015, and there's all kinds of protocol, and there's all kinds of pomp and circumstance and everything that needs to be addressed today and tomorrow before they really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of everything they're going to be trying to accomplish up at our session, and he's going to kind of lay it out for us and let us know what's happening. And a quick reminder, tonight is the big night, first college championship football game, and it's going to be between Ohio State and Oregon. Yes, I'm going to pick Oregon. Yes, I'm going to say by a touchdown, and two good schools, two really good schools, two very well-coached schools, Ohio State and Oregon, and it should be a lot of excitement tonight on the national championship. Let's see if we have him ready to go. Gina, all set? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And right now, a dear friend of ours that has been very, very instrumental in helping us with all the information out of the State House and what's going on at the legislative session for the last couple of years, and that's Representative Fred Wood. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. How are you this morning?
Well, right now, believe it or not, I don't know what it's doing up in Boise, but I've got, and it's still snowing, probably about 2 or more inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, it started snowing early this morning. We don't have that much on the ground, but we've got an inch and a half, I'll bet.
All right. Today, I would imagine, I want you to kind of walk us through a little bit. I said just a moment ago, the pomp and the circumstance and everything that's going on. Give us a little thumbnail sketch as to what happens today up at the legislative session to get through all that pomp and circumstance and what you're going to be going through.
Well, today is the last day of that, thank goodness, and then we'll finally get to work, and there's about 3 hours of it today. What happens is the House will convene for the first session of the 63rd legislature at 12 o'clock, and then we have to set aside the rules so that we can actually have a joint meeting with the Senate, which takes some time. You have to send out committees to the Senate. Then we have to bring the Senate over, and then in a joint session, then we have to pass rules that allow the gentleman on the second floor or the governor to actually come up and address the legislature, and we have to do that because of a separation of powers issue. So there's a bunch of pomp and circumstances, but there's also legitimate work that has to be done to prepare for the governor's State of the State address at 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm. We started a little early on that. Typically, all of that only takes about half hour, 45 minutes, but you've got all of the news media, television, radio, etc., all set to go on schedule at 1 o'clock, so we typically hurry up and then we wait, and then just about on the announced time at 1 o'clock, we'll send someone down to get the governor comes up, we'll bring in the Supreme Court, etc. Before that, and the constitutional officers. At 1 o'clock, the governor will deliver the State of the State and the State of the Budget. That takes probably 45 minutes to an hour. And then we have to deconstruct that whole scenario that we constructed for a joint session, and we should be done along about 2:30, 2:45. And then after that, we can go to work, Seth.
Let me ask you this, Fred, and I like to inject a little humor, a little levity into all situations sometimes. But in your being a representative for the state of Idaho, has anybody ever said, oops, we forgot to do this on a scheduled time, or we forgot to do this as protocol? Has that ever happened since you've been a representative?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it has. It doesn't happen often, and the good thing about it is there are checks and balances, so that that's typically caught ahead of time before there's any major disaster associated with it. but it has happened.
Okay.
If you remember correctly, and it was just before I got here, the morning, it would be this morning, a number of years ago, when the pro tem of the Senate, Jerry Twiggs, was out jogging.
Yes.
And he's keeled over dead from a heart attack.
Yes.
That put this whole process, that delayed this whole entire process by 1 week. Now, that wasn't necessarily an oops, somebody did something wrong, but that was an oops where there was a major monkey wrench thrown in the whole machinery.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, it does happen from time to time. There are all kinds of double checks and triple checks to make sure that it doesn't. So mostly it comes off pretty much without a hitch.
Let me ask you this, Fred, and I don't think I'm being too elementary on this. I think people sometimes, they don't want to admit that they don't honestly know how this mechanics of government works. How do they, being you and others, select people to be on various committees? I mean, do you look for their strong points? Do you look for their weaknesses? How do people get selected to be on various committees?
Well, in the House of Representatives, Rule 53 authorizes the Speaker the sole power to select the committee chairs and make all appointments to standing committees. As a matter of fact, all of the entire rules of the House of Representatives are about authorizing a single person, which is the Speaker of the House, to have all of the power associated with the House. No one else in the House of Representatives has the power to do anything. It's the last known dictatorship in the United States. But it's good. It has to work that way. It's like a general on the battlefield. You can't have two generals in charge. You have to have one.
Right.
The Speaker, in talking to Scott, and this is a good question for him. I'll try and answer it, but he can answer it better. With respect to selecting chairman, he tries to select people who have shown by a history of serving on that committee that they have a grasp of the subject and are able to technically manage a committee. Then with respect to appointing other people on the committee, it's a combination of geography, because you don't want all of your people from agricultural on the ag committee to be from, say, eastern Idaho. You'd certainly want some from the Magic Valley, and you'd want some from the Treasure Valley, and you'd want some from up north. And then people's desires and their area of expertise. Most people who are involved in agriculture come down here and want to be on the ag committee. So there's various things that go into determining who the Speaker selects for various committee assignments.
Let me ask you this question, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the issues. But what about somebody that is a freshman or fresh person, and they're new to the legislative session? How do you know, or how would Scott know, or how would anybody know what their likes, dislikes, or strong points are?
Oh, we have a process. There's a form that they fill out with respect to morning committees and with respect to afternoon committees, what their preferences are, etc. And then Scott is very good about going around the state and talking to all of the freshmen ahead of time. And you know, I mean, he'll literally get in his car and drive around the state and meet with them and talk to them for an hour or two. And these are some of the questions that he will ask them. What are your preferences? Why are those your preferences? What is your background? What type of business have you been in? What do you consider your area of expertise? And who would I ask to find out what your expertise really is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an interview process that Scott and the rest of the leadership go through to try to determine what the best fits would be.
Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the issues that are going to be up in front of the legislative session. What do you think is the most prominent? Let's rank the top 3 that are going to take a lot of your time and others' time up there at the session.
I think that 75% of the entire legislative session will be spent on education.
Really?
And I think anybody that you talk to up here will agree with that statement. And I think the other 25% will be transportation and transportation funding to try and figure out how we're going to maintain the infrastructure that we have. And I think that other than the routine budget setting process, the routine rules review, and the routine statutory stuff that comes through all committees, I think that those are the 2 main issues that are going to consume the legislature's time. And I've not heard any consensus at all on what to do about the big recommendations from the governor's working group on education.
Mm-hmm. No.
And secondly, I've not heard any consensus about raising revenue for transportation.
Yeah.
So they're both a crapshoot at this point in time.
You know, I want to spend most of the remaining time on education, but I want to ask you this about transportation funding and for the infrastructure, the bridges, roads, etc. We're looking at the Obama administration saying that they really would like to come out and hit us, the American consumer, with an extremely high additional gas tax. It was in this weekend's paper, and they say now that energy prices are low, they want to really have a substantial increase. Well, the American consumer is paying for everything, and I don't mind paying for infrastructure, Fred, but then let's keep that money earmarked for infrastructure, and the same for the state, instead of having that pie eaten by other sources and other entities.
I couldn't agree more. If you want to argue, go call somebody else then, because I agree with you 110%, particularly because if you look at transportation funding, I think you could argue that it's more of a fee than a tax because, the transportation user funds that, and it goes mostly to that. And I think that anytime you have a fee structure or something that resembles a fee structure more than a tax structure, then I think 100% of those fees should go to exactly what they're supposed to go for, which is building and maintaining infrastructure, period.
I totally agree. Okay, let's go to education. And I want to say this, but I got to be blunt, too. I don't believe in mincing words. I haven't seen any appeasement. I haven't seen any copacetic relationship with education versus the legislative session. It's always more and more and more. What do you think is going to work so that finally we can have somewhat of an agreement that the legislature is trying and everybody can smile and shake hands with each other?
That's a tall order, and I'm not sure at this point. Well, I don't think there's any consensus at this point in time on what that should look like. That's why I said what I said ahead of time. In being up here for the last few days and in listening to conversations in the hallways, etc., and around the lunch table or whatever in the last few days, people have a lot of ideas, but there is no gelling around any idea that I have found yet. So I don't mean to sound like, I don't know what I'm talking about or anything, or there's nothing going on up here. There's a lot going on, Zeb, but there is no consensus yet. There's no consensus about licensure. There is no consensus about a career ladder. There's no consensus about how much money should even be put into education. Mm-hmm. I think that even that varies widely. There's one school of thought up here, I don't know how many people subscribe to it, that there shouldn't be any more money put in education. I think that's a very significant minority. But all I'm saying is that that's all over the map as to what's going on. Now, the governor is supposed to put out some ideas with respect to education today in the State of the State and the State of the Budget address. And I hope he is fairly specific, because at least the legislature can then take each one of those points and then start dissecting it out and determining whether or not there's any consensus on any of those points that he brings forward. I do know that in the House Education Committee, I just heard this morning that there is no consensus on the Education Committee about which way we should go on some of these issues. So that tells you how much work we've got to get done. And there's a lot to do.
Let me ask you this, Fred, and we've been friends for a long time, and when you pick up the newspaper and you see the local newspaper compare Idaho as the Mississippi of the West, lowest in respect, lowest in education, lowest in income and everything, doesn't that bother you a little bit as a state representative because of the damnation, if you will, by our local paper?
Well, this is what concerns me, and it bothers me a lot. If you look at, on a per capita basis, okay, because everything has to be, make sure you're comparing oranges to oranges and not apples to oranges. But on a per capita basis, forget what we spend, etc. If you compare how Idaho's students coming out of Idaho's schools, both K through 12 and higher ed, compare in the workforce and the number of high school students that we have that go to the military academies on a per capita basis, or go to institutions of higher learning, or on the East Coast, the Ivy League schools, etc. You know what? Idaho students compare, they're in the top half. So I'm not sure, there's lies, there's damned lies, and then there's statistics. And I don't think there's more of a truer saying in the world than that phrase right there, because you can have statistics say anything. But if you look at it in a different way, it's just simply not true. And so the bad thing about that is, and I agree with you that I don't think they're doing us any good service at all, is that it seems that our education system isn't functioning. But our kids are coming out doing pretty dang well. Absolutely.
One final thought here, Fred, and that's regarding water. Is water going to take up a certain percentage of our time, or have the issues been addressed, per se, to where maybe we can gloss things over for another legislative session?
I don't think there's going to be much come up in water at all. I just spoke with, on Saturday, I was down here working, and I spoke with the chairman of the House Resources Committee, Representative Raybould, Dale Raybould, and he didn't seem to think so. The courts have pretty well decided an awful lot of water issues now, and they pretty well decided who is responsible, et cetera, for a lot of the stuff that needs to be done in the future with respect to water issues. There may be one or two small issues left, but the entire Snake River Basin adjudication has now been done. The court has signed off on all of that. There are a few things coming, but Zeb, I don't expect any major issues this year, and neither did the chairman. Okay. And that's basically where my comment to you is coming from.
Well, I tell you what, I thank you so much, Representative Fred Wood, and we're going to have alternate schedules every Monday. We're going to have some with Fred, we're going to have some with Senator Dean Cameron and Speaker of the House Scott Bedke, and we're going to save this half hour every Monday to basically talk about what's going on in the legislative session. And Representative Fred Wood, God bless you, man. Thank you so much for your time and kind of a walkthrough on some of these questions. We appreciate it.
Zeb, thank you so much. Senator Cameron is up next week, so he should be there, and your listeners can call in or however you wish to run the program, and we'll be there every week to keep the citizens back home updated. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Representative Fred Wood on our program this morning, kind of giving us a thumbnail sketch as to what really goes on behind the scenes in selecting everybody for the committees and everything. And the pomp and the circumstance is going to come to a close today and tomorrow. He said, yep, we got to get to work. We got a lot of things to do. So do I. I've got to get the weather in here. And the weather is brought to you this hour by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, with Don and the rest of the crew. Number to call, 324-7657. Oh, my goodness, they offer quality products at reasonable rates. Beef and pork and lamb and the processing of wild game. Everything they sell is guaranteed. Delicious. Absolutely, they sell taste one bite at a time. You're going to love Scarrows Meats in Jerome. Right now here, Michael Rogers weather.
Hey everyone, Michael Rogers or Zeb in the Ranch. Got a yucky day for today, tonight, and tomorrow. But from tomorrow night all the way to Friday, make that Saturday, you got some pretty nice looking weather and cooler temperatures. 40s for the daytime highs, upper 20s for the overnight lows. Should be an inch on the ground of possible snow at the end of the night going into tomorrow. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. Brought to you by our friends at Scarrows Meats, as I choked to death, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, Don and the rest of the crew, 324-7657. 324-7657. Yep. They are selling taste one bite at a time. You know, I didn't ask Gina who she's picking for the big game tonight. Are you going to go with Ohio State or Oregon?
Since I'm a Pacific Northwest girl, I am going to go with Oregon. However, I do have some James's relatives are from Ohio, so they're going to be going against up for Ohio.
He's got relatives back in Ohio, huh?
Oh, yes.
They've got an excellent football team, but I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. I don't think they've been such a transitional force in college football over the last 5 or 6 years to where it's just absolute speed. I think that they will wear down Ohio State. I think that it's going to be a 1-touchdown game. And I'll tell you what, I don't think there's anybody in college football today that wears more of the wackiest uniforms than the Oregon Ducks.
I have to agree. And they came out on field, and I'm like, what's up with the uniform?
You know, I want to ask you a question. Did you see the last game they played with those kind of pale green?
I didn't. I'd have to Google it.
They blended in, and Google this and talk to me about it tomorrow, but they blended in with the green field, and it was really hard to see them. May I ask you a question? Yes. Why is everybody so down on Boise State and playing in their blue uniforms on the blue turf when others like Oregon and others like Eastern Washington with the red field and the red uniforms, why do they get away with it?
Well, actually, they don't get away with it. Just as many people are complaining about those. I think that the Boise State was the trendsetter on that one when they came out with the blue turf, and then they matched the uniforms to that blue turf, which made it a little bit more difficult for them to be seen.
And they are.
And so I think a lot of other teams are saying, hey, you know, that's a great idea, so they're following suit.
But Oregon, I don't think they've worn the same uniforms twice this whole season. And they're going to have a wild kind of a white and silver uniform on tonight, and Ohio State's going to stay pretty well traditional with the gray and the red, and we'll see what happens. But I'm picking Oregon by 7 points tonight.
I actually Googled it, and I just pulled up the white and silver uniforms that you were actually talking about. And so where's the green on that one?
There isn't any.
I know.
I couldn't see any.
I'm not seeing any either.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Gina. I got to wrap things up here and tell everybody about our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, my service to you. Now, if you waited last week, remember I told you to check out your snow tires? Remember I told you to check out your tires for traction, the pin for studs tires and everything? Well, look outside. There you go. There you go. Snow on the ground. Well, it's still time. You can get in there. A lot of winter left. You better believe it. You better get in there to your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Check out all the traction tires. Check out the best in brake service. Check out all the tire chains and the batteries. They've got all your batteries, front end alignments, shocks and struts. I'm telling you, they really care and worry about your safe driving. So you stop in there and see them today. 7 locations serving you. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pauline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Now, with all the changes that I've had on today's program because of some people not making it on the show, there is no way, a snowball's chance in the oven, that I'm going to tell you who exactly is going to be on the program tomorrow. I think we're going to have Dan Gaynor coming on the program from back in Washington, D.C. I know we're going to have Dr. History on the program, and I think Casey Givens from back in Washington is going to be on our program talking about various subjects that are coming up on the national scene. And you tune in. We'll be right here at 8:06. Zeb at the Ranch, and I will be feeling better tomorrow, I can tell you that. Like Dal called in earlier this morning, and Gina agreed with him. I'm going to go get some onions and place them in every room and watch the dog have tears in her eyes and hopefully feel better tomorrow morning. The way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you and your family. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.